Good morning, afternoon, evening. It's a fun experience for me to be all over the world at the same time. It's good to see you all. My name is Michael. I work as a team leader in a public sector. It's child protection services here in Denmark, but in Denmark it's. I just spoke to Jesper earlier about that. It's also very early interventions. It'll be speech therapy, lots of easygoing help options for families, and then all the way on till children being put in foster care and so on. So it's a wide variety of services that we offer, and I work as a team lead there for social workers and psychologists and so on.
And you have how many team members?
I have in my immediate team, I have 15, and then I have another mixed team of different professions of similar 15.
Okay, so you're responsible for around 30 people. Yeah.
Yeah, in day-to-day, yeah.
Okay. And my name is Jesper. I'm a consultant, coach, trainer. I usually say whatever brings money. So I'm a self-employed. Michael is a leader. He's employed, and I'm a self-employed. I work both in the public and private sector and been doing so for many years. So I walk in and out of organizations. And sometimes I even have to work with concepts that are absolutely not solution focused. If people ask me to coach a manager who's done a 360-degree feedback survey and he needs to work out an action plan on how to improve or whatever. So sometimes I say, yeah, of course, I'll do that and see how that works. So I really love this that you are solution focused, but sometimes you are in environments that are absolutely not. And that's actually what have brought Michael and me together, because we have met over the years at conferences, seminars, and different kind of stuff. And always in the coffee breaks, we ended up so small talking about, oh, by the way, oh yes, small funny stories about incident we had in the organizations. And actually, when we were planning this conference, Michael he called me up and say, okay, yes, but we have shouldn't we do something with all these small stories we have all over the year? And we were pondering around, so what could it be? And we figured out, hey, I mean, Michael is a leader. He has the responsibility for some team members and also for developing them, developing their skills and making sure they have a good environment they can working and present them the best. And I walk in and out, so I have very little time to actually, hey, I'm a solution focused consultant. This is the way we do it. Whereas Michael, he has more longer time to slowly work and figure out what are these kind of people, how can I approach them, how can I support them. And we found both out that what pays off the best is not talking about it, just doing it. And then we started exchanging stories and we thought maybe somebody would be interested in that. Who knows? And this is actually how this workshop came to life. With this, we thought, what would happen if we just made a webinar about stories, about interactions, solution-focused interactions where you actually don't set the frame, say, now we're going to work solution-focused, but we just interact with people in a way. Sometimes with a little bit of presentation, sometimes without anything, and in all kinds of situations. And we hope that you will add on some stories as well as we go along. I know it's a very short time we have, but anyway. And that brings us, may I ask the question now, Michael?
Yeah, sure.
It's okay. So we have these two roles, me as an external consultant and Michael as a leader, ongoing in a fixed place that he has his environment and I have my environment. So we would be curious, where are you? I mean, what kind of role are you having today? Are you in a fixed position? Are you a leader, or are you in an environment where you have fixed colleagues that you see every day, or are you more an external person? who are so meeting a lot of different kind of clients and stuff like that. So is it possible to ask you all, is it possible to put on your camera just for a short moment? And those who are not able to it, maybe write in the chat. So hands up or raise your voice if you're a leader. So in a leading position where you are responsible for other people. Yeah, no, no. Okay, we have Kai. Yes, great, wonderful. Sinead writes leader and fixed. Leader side. Ferenc, I hope I pronounced it right, said leader. Elena, private sector, human resource. Also, I would consider sort of a leader position. Okay, good, great. So we have an idea. And the other ones of you, are you employed or are you self-employed? So independent or in an environment where you have colleagues and okay, Catherine says none of the two at the moment, starting a leader position shortly. You can choose then. Would you like to be an independent or would you like to be a leader? That's your choice. That's wonderful. Self-employed counselor, Frank says. Self-employed, Annette says. Therapist, Liz Brown said. Coach trainer. Currently still a student in Masters of Counseling, Mai says. Self-employed, Helen says. Okay, it's just to have an idea in what kind of environment are you? Are you seeing a lot of different kind of people? Of course, you can have long-term customers, you know, that you're working for, long-term clients. But otherwise, it's that. Good. Michael, should we just go along and then
Yeah.
and then see what happens with the first story? We are shifting, taking turns.
Yeah, because when actually I have been trained as a solution-focused practitioner for a long time. So my first leadership job, should we go on to that or should I mean, part of the slide right now is it's just highlighting what Jesper said earlier, but also that whenever I have spoken to Jesper, I've always seen like uh, the joy of being in a non-knowing position and the way that that could set him free to work solution focused with people. So that's kind of my and one of the many creative moves that Jesper has had introduced me to was this 1 minute dice or minute dice, and I just love the way that he could work with people and without having all that daily trouble of working with real human beings. He didn't have to deal with their divorce and so on. So I always thought that must be amazing to be able to focus on the solution focused. But yeah, and I don't know if you want to say some more about that, Jesper.
Yeah, it's just I know it's the wrong slide. All right, we'll come to your story in just a
Yeah.
second. Yeah, it's sort of we had this Michael and I had this envy competition. You know, it's just like, you know, I was just envying Michael because he had people around him where he could notice the small changes in every day. He could follow them and see them progressing and developing, and he could just interact with them, you know, amplify what works well while it happens. As when I sometimes work with teams, we have a whole broader time sense, you know, what would happen, and I would leave them afterwards, and I would have no idea what would happen next morning or during the week or whatever. And what Michael just said, he was talking about, hey, would it be nice to not have all this these stories at the workplace, also stories that didn't work well, you know, all these chit chat gossip maybe that sometimes comes because we are humans and we are talking with each other. That I can walk in and I have no background stories on the people. I can just meet them where they are and how they are in the moment. And being, that was Michael's word, the researcher, you know, just research on what they're doing, where they want to go, and what the best hopes are. So this was a bit more to the background. So enough of that. This
Yeah.
one, the
So
first story.
yeah, so my first leadership job I started about 13 years ago, and I was actually employed to implement solution-focused practice there. It was very clear to me that it needed some time before I could actually do it, because there was a lot of things going on in the department that would take up people's focus. But I had a very interesting talk with some people initially. And there was, I kind of had a talk with two workers about introducing the solution focused, and one was extremely experienced into it. She had already done a year course, and she was very kind of keen on it. And the other one was completely blank and knew nothing about it. And I was it was really a learning curve for myself, because I thought that I had to kind of convince the new one how it worked and what was the whole philosophy behind it and why this is a better method than some other methods. And she was really not interested, whereas the experience was why is this working? She found it so interesting. And what dawned on me is that she really just wanted to see that it worked before she wanted to spend any time on it. And it was really kind of the whole inductive process approach to it, what works, go with that. It was just an eye-opener for me, because it was really not about putting the whole groundwork and explaining all the philosophy. It was about introducing to the methods. So for a long period, and maybe very long, but that was one of the moves I could do as a leader. I could say we are here for the long run. So it actually ended up being probably a 3-year period. But at the first, at least half a year, I introduced something called, I said it very openly to them. Every time we had a staff meeting, I called it the Trojan horse. And I said to them, listen, today I will just introduce you to a method in the solution-focused practice, and you can use it or don't. I'm a leader, but I will not follow up. I will not ask you. I will introduce something that I have found helpful for me in my practice when I was a practitioner, and you can use it if you want. And it was a very nice way of introducing it, because some people actually took it up and they came back and gave feedback. Other people obviously didn't, but it was a way of just introducing it without any pressure. And it really helped us to bring together all the stories of actually how it worked for people. And so I didn't have to convince people that this is a better method. We went with, in which context does this actually help? And that kind of led to a more, and then afterwards we had a 2-year course where everybody went into it. But there's another story. But it actually started off with this Trojan horse. Yeah, and there was my own little gimmick there. But I think it was very helpful to say it openly, that there's no pressure, but I do believe it. So open it, take it if you want. I'm not going to force you to do it. There was a whole Trojan horse aspect to it. But please do if it seems helpful.
Yeah. What I really like about this story, and please people jump in, is that it was more like an offering. It was a bit like, say, I'm gonna introduce something to you that I really like, that I really want, but I'm not, what Michael said, I'm not gonna follow up. So it's take it or leave it. Don't feel a pressure. Don't feel that this is how it has to be. So what I believe, I wasn't there, but I can imagine that it would create some curiosity. Say, yeah, I don't like it, I don't want it. And then after a couple of months, maybe take a look at it. Sort of it spreading out, like maybe somebody catch it, somebody doesn't. And I think creating rumors, about something that might work. Okay, should we quickly take another story just to get people warmed up? So I'll share one for you. My challenge as an external is that I have very little time to build up trust and safety when I come into a new team. And what I've found out, What works really well is when Hazen Moon introduced her dialogic orientation quadrant. That I was very excited and introduced it. And I realized when I was introducing that in my coach training, my solution-focused coach training, people very quickly got the idea of what is SF about. Much easier than before I started using the model. So I could actually do it more efficiently. I could leave out some of my ways of introducing it before. And I started experimenting when I met new groups of people, new teams. And I don't know if you have experienced that, but sometimes people could really sit with their arms crossed and say, yes, okay, so now here we have the consultant. He's brought in by the manager to make us do the right things. Do we really want to do that? And when I then started to say, before we go into the process, before we start doing this, I'll just let you know how I'm working, you know? So I started to say, I have this one. Now I can see I don't have the quadrants on it, but we can move in the work we have to do today. We can have 4 positions. We can have a position in the future where we're talking about what do we want? How would that look like? And we can have a position in the past where we talked about what has been working well in that direction so far. What are we good at? What can we do that points in that direction? But there's also something we have met in the position in the past that was really bad. There have been conflicts where there are humans, there are discussions, there are disagreements, there are conflicts, big or small, and that we carry into this process as well. And based on that troubled past, we can, of course, imagine what would go wrong in the future. So if I have to be efficient together with you today, because I'm not employed at the same place as you are, I will leave it sometimes. Then I would prefer to be up in quadrant 1 and 2. Again, 1 is the preferred future, 2 is the resourceful past, and quadrant 3 is the troubled past, and quadrant 4 is the dreaded future. But I am sure that that of course there are times where things don't go well. So we will talk, I will open up for we are talking about that, but I just want to create the awareness that when we are talking, we know where we are in this conversation. And this has been extremely helpful for me. I prefer to draw it on a flip chart so it hangs visible in the room. Or if it's online group work, then it's reminding them or actually sending them this one. I just say, and please interrupt me anytime. If you are in doubt, you can ask me, yes, but where are you right now? So are you in quadrant 3, the trouble past, or what are you talking about? And this actually, I make what you call a psychological contract with people. So I always bid them in and take responsible for the process. And I relate it to this model because I think it's simple. Everybody can nod to that and say, yes, of course, we are in these 4 positions when we are talking together. And for me, it helps. It becomes a tool for me in the process as well and say, okay, when you talk about we need to change the system because it's not good, where are you at the moment? And do you want to stay there? Should we focus on that? So if the people say, yeah, we have so many crappy meetings, oh yeah, we have so many things that doesn't work, say, okay, so you are in the troubled past. Would you like to stay there for a while? Should we focus on that? What do you say, team? And if they say, yes, we need to talk about what's wrong. In my young days as a solution-focused practitioner, I was just really, I'm coming here, we talk about the preferred future, we talk about what's working, and people got really annoyed. They felt not acknowledged when things are not working. And this is what I've learned to really spend time to say, okay, so it hasn't been working till now. It still is not working. So how do you manage to do your work despite that it doesn't work? So try still, for me, not teaching them how to talk with each other, but following them around. And I actually found out it's much easier for me as well to be respectful and asking, so where are you at the moment?
Yeah. Jesper, I was just thinking when you said this term psychological contract, I must admit, preparing for this has been really helpful for me. Because suddenly you see your own position differently. And the whole psychological contract as a leader is just an interesting it's a different position that Jesper has, where he comes in the now and has to deal with the past and the future, whereas very often I've been there in the past, and I hopefully will be there in the future with my workers. So it's just it's the same kind of psychological contract, it just has different terms. And yeah, it's just there's some limitations to it, and there's definitely some that have really opened my eyes this process to it. And there's also great possibilities in that. Whereas Jesper is just the same great possibilities. He can really ask honestly unknowing questions. Whereas I've been so much in the past that, of course, I also have been part of the previous conversations.
So what do we say? Do we continue with the stories? Are there any comments? You can unmute yourself. You can write in the chat if it fits you better.
Maybe it'd be interesting to hear if people had some thoughts about this different positioning in working with people. Because there was a mixed group of leaders and self-employed. So it would be different experiences that way.
Do we dare to put them in breakout rooms just for a couple of minutes? I think maybe people feel more safe to work there.
If you know the technical aspect of that. If I do it, you might never come back.
I'll just see. There are 3 to 4 participants in each room. I just create some room, and let's just take, 5 minutes to figure out, and then we go back and see what happens. So I don't want to hear all of you, but I would be curious, and I'm sure Michael will be as well, what happened in the other groups. I mean, we're not interested in reports or what. So what you talked about, but more, what did you find inspiring in this short talk? Kai, you sound like you would like to say something.
No, I didn't want to say something. I'm just on the ride, and therefore maybe there's some background noise.
Okay.
Pretending that I'm talking. But I can give a summary. That, what I've told as well in the group is that in my experience as a people lead without people being a people manager, it has the advantage that I can have a long-term relationship with my colleagues without having their fear that it might influence their salary. And on the other hand, I see that there is a lot of overlap between short-term coaching and long-term coaching. With long-term coaching, we have the additional aspect that we can better monitor things. What has of the goal setting has been fruitful, what has not been so fruitful and needs to be adjusted based on the experience. So I can use the short-term methods as well in the long-term coaching relationships, but there are even additional other aspects.
Yes. Thank you, Kai. Yes. So what, more stories or another comment? What did you find interesting in your talk?
I'll say something, Jesper. I mean, what I related to both of your stories is being transparent with clients, because I'm a coach and trainer and work with leaders a lot. But whenever I've shared the DOQ of what I'm doing, I got the same reaction as you did. The people grab hold of it and they love it. And so I think there's something about that equalizing the relationship when you're transparent with what you're doing. So that we were talking about that in our conversation.
Yes. And the funny thing, I just realized now, I made this mistake. I didn't put numbers on the DOQ, you know, because normally Hazen, she makes preferred future 1, the first quadrant, resourceful past the second, and so on. But I looked at it and think, you know, damn, I forgot to put the numbers on. Oh, how embarrassing in this webinar with all these people. And I realized, maybe it's a good idea not to put numbers on, because numbers are always hierarchical. You know, and I think the next time I'm going to use this one, I won't put the numbers on, because then it's more pure a position than it is, you know, this is the quadrant 1 is more worth than quadrant 3. So, hey, thank you, Michael, for saying we should make this webinar. Now I just learned something new that I can use in my practice. So I think we will continue with a story from Michael. Another one.
Yeah.
Should it be this one, or will you prefer another one?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, I can't remember the name of it. 2 seconds. It was just what Annette just said that made me think of something. Yeah, something rotten in our case discussions, if you could find that. And hopefully you can all get the play on words. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark from Hamlet. But we formed a new team in 1st of November with some people I worked with for a long time and some new people who joined us. And there was just something going on whenever we did case discussions. So we meet about 15 social workers, and they are to bring up cases that they struggle with. And we normally use signs of safety as like a framework. These people are not solution focused, so sometimes it doesn't get very solution focused, even though the talk. But we kind of try and form the framework, try and form the discussions and use that as kind of a helpful tool. But something was just, I kept getting these vibes, and people came to me and said, we don't have trust between us. And I was really for a long time like problem focused here. I wondered what is going on and how can I fix it? And I really didn't know what to do. So one day I gave them, we had some strength-based questions about when do they enjoy work, when are they doing the best work, and so on. So I actually formulated just another question saying that, you know, what is it that they're actually missing in their group discussions? What is it, you know, what do they need for it to really work? And everybody present came up with this word. And then I've said to them, can you try and interview each other and ask the question, what differences would you notice if we succeeded to be more beep in our case discussions? And it was really interesting to see them talk to each other and interviewing each other. And the way it actually built a lot of trust and acknowledgement and all these things just by asking that question. And the next group meeting, we have it every week. And after, I think 2 weeks went by because there was a break at some point. And I asked them, do we need to talk more about these problems? And they said, no, I think we already solved it. We already know what we're looking for. So I said, okay, to follow up, could you just, and then I gave them their answers back because I made them write all these things down. So I just said, can you just look through it before we have the case discussions today? And just look for times during the case discussions where this really happens. And then we'll just evaluate afterwards and see where we actually succeed. And it was just a really good feedback, and people were just so respectful and great. And I put the last point here in the end, like one of the challenges of being a manager and trying to change the way people work to a more solution-focused, more helpful manner is how to squeeze it in the normal work. And so often, especially when we implemented solution-focused practice, we spend a lot of time saying, how much on these case discussions, how much focus should we put on really just practicing the method, and how much focus on actually getting something out of it. And of course, there is a great overlap that you can get something out while practicing, but sometimes it also feels like you could get a better output if you did it differently and not so solution focused and so on. So we really battle this. And so as a manager, it's just to kind of constantly look for what I call like glimpses of preferred future and to highlight it, but even better for them to highlight it themselves. It's just very helpful doing the ordinary work because we really don't have time for a very long introduction to methods and so on. So people have to work the way they actually already can do and find useful for them. Yeah. I don't know, Jesper, if that made you think of something, or we should ask if.
Yeah, just hear what people think when they talk about that. Thoughts on it? This could, I think this could quite easy apply to a normal meeting. I mean, this is a big thing. Now I'm talking from the view of a consultant. We're talking about how many millions of money we lose every year on useless meetings, on things that doesn't work, on all these. So it doesn't have to be case discussion. It just have to be, you know, overall in meetings. What is important for you to have a meaningful meeting? What difference would you notice if we succeeded to be more meaningful in our meetings and so on? So I think this applies in a much broader sense. I mean, really, it really looks good, and I think it's something worth looking for. And then you say a glimpse of your normal work. So not just one meeting, hey, now we come in here, inspire, go do it from now on, but actually be persistent and go on. Each time we have, in your case, casework, you know? So what's different now? What's better now? What made it useful today?
What I liked, Jesper, about what Michael, how you described it is you're not, as the leader, trying to work it out. You're enabling them to work it out, you know, how you can make case discussions better, you know, which
I
is,
tried very hard at first.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me of a story, if I may continue, and one I even prepared that fits excellently with yours, Michael. Again, I had a team who was really struggling. They had back-to-back meetings. It was a group of, what do you call it, youth educational counselors. So they were a lot out of in schools and working very apart. And then they have these regular meetings where they came, but they were so stressed, and they said, oh, they came late in the meetings. They weren't prepared. The thoughts were by the last meeting or the meeting who would come afterwards. It was really difficult to land in the meeting. And then we developed a very simple little exercise that I asked them to try out, experiments. You know, I love experiments. I love something to say, okay, let's try out for the next couple of time, next days, next weeks, next months. So they were really frustrated on, they had these appointments, they couldn't make a buffer zone. They couldn't make it so that they could prepare and come more quietly and easily. And they were really struggling with how to arrive without wasting my own time, because I hardly know what's going on in the meeting, or waste the other one's time because I'm unprepared, or I disturb the meeting because I come late. So I said, okay, coming late, that's your decision. I can't change anything that, but I recommend that when you come, you start the meeting with 2 minutes of silence. So if you come late, you walk in the room, you have to look at your watch and then just be silent as you are. So silent you can come and sit down. And on the board, it was just written, what are your best hopes for this meeting? Again, no introduction of how come this one. And I said, you can reformulate it if it doesn't make sense. You can say, what is the best outcome of this meeting I want to see, or whatever you do. But I'm just writing, what are your best hopes for this meeting? 2 minutes, no electronics, nothing. Don't take any notes. Just sit down, relax, and think about it. And they did that and found it really helpful. So they actually doubled it up. They said, okay, when I came back, I think it was 2 months later, I was meeting the group again. I said, oh, we double it up for 4 minutes. It's so nice. It's really so wonderful. And those who come late, they double it up because you just couldn't manage to come on time. Some of them, they came in, they know, okay, I have to be silent. I have to walk in, not disturbing the other ones, finding my seat and sit down. And still they could just like, I'm here. And okay, on the board, it was just said, then made a fixed sign they could put up. What are your best hopes for this meeting? So they can sit down, they could ground themselves, they could focus, okay, now I'm here. No matter whether I read the agenda or not, what do I hope to get out of it? So they claimed that their meetings enhanced in quality, that they got better of it. And it just was a reminder when you're very stressed and you're flying in the door, just, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, shh, don't disturb the other ones. And just be silent. And the other ones just got the time to get rid of where they just came from, and also make a little break from saying, no, not think about what's coming after this meeting. Now I'm here. So being present, that just reminded me, Michael, when you talked about your meeting when we are in there. So very small thing, and just this sentence, no explanation why it is this sentence.
I actually just thought about, and I haven't prepared this story, but as a new leader these years back, I really thought that my job was to kind of pep talk the employees. I mean, social workers is just so self-motivated, and the ambition is much higher than sometimes their time allows them. So, but I actually started, partly this is not solution focused, I started a coffee meeting Monday morning, and especially because we had many young mothers employed, I said, let's just take a few moments here in peace and quiet, and let's enjoy and get ready for the work week. But actually, I introduced this thing about what happened last week that made your job meaningful. And it was really touching for them just to share these stories amongst themselves. And I mean, that was a better motivation than any speech I could come up with, right? Because it was real stories of how they had succeeded in that job. And sometimes at that time where we were implementing solution focus, there was a lot of their focus. So they would actually share with each other at these meetings how they had used some of these methods, and that was helpful, but also just stories of how, their work really made sense. So it doesn't take much, I think. Oh, you can do a lot over a cup of coffee.
What a nice story, yeah.
I don't know how close we are to finishing.
Officially 4 minutes.
Yeah, because I think we need to respect the time. But I don't know if maybe you should just, if there are any last thoughts from people, some things they had been made aware of that they take with them. Maybe then give a few minutes to share that either in the chat or on the microphone. Maybe I can share one last story then.
Yes.
And it's a story I often share. And I think that for me, that really highlights the joy of being a manager. Because so often you work with people who develop their skills, and you can actually really help them. You can be their witness of how they develop that. So you can help them to look back. And my kid was struggling with reflux from he was 2 until about 5. And we had the nicest pediatrician. And one day he was really sick with lots of different, and he needed medicine because he couldn't get over these vira. And this old doctor said, I don't have any time today, but you can come in my lunch break. And if somebody calls, I just need to pick up the phone. And we were sitting with this doctor 45 minutes, and we were really tired as parents. We were just fed up, him being sick all the time and on medicine. And it was just amazing the way the old doctor said to us, but you say it's not getting any better. But I remember when you came 2 years ago, he couldn't lie on his back. He really struggled, and now he can lie on his back. He's much better. And sometimes to actually take people back and remind them, you overcame this, you overcame this, you overcame this, and see how they grow in front of you. That's one of the big joys of being a manager, and one of the things that preparing for this really made me appreciate again. So often kind of tell this anecdote to my workers and say, can you remember yourself, when you came in and you struggled to do this and you did amazingly. And then you can pile it up on them and give them the confidence that they need to take on the next challenge. And that was actually one of the things that really made me fall in love with the solution focus, because I'm brought up in a sports environment. So the whole scaling would always be, what do I need to get at 10? And one day it just clicked in my brain that there's so much energy in talking about, and I always use 0 because nobody's 0. There's always something. If you say 1 in my work, where there's people in a lot of trouble, some people actually might say 1, but nobody will say 0. So there's always something that works, even in the most destitute, horrible family conditions. There's always a little bit that you can talk about that works, and that gives so much energy.
Yeah. Which reminds me of a story. I don't know, do people have 2 minutes more? Yeah, would that be okay? Then we're going just a little bit over time. And it's prepared, but it just resonated beautifully what you just said, Michael, if I may. I once had a client who really came, we had to start the coaching session, and then he was just like, oh, I really screwed up big time. A meeting where I had such an important meeting with some other clients, and I just completely screwed it up. I don't know. I'm considering maybe looking for another job, because I'm sure I will get fired for what I've done. I simply don't know what to do. And then I used what I've been using a couple of since many years, Michael Yates micro tools. From the philosophy, there's always a best you did. So I asked him, so, okay, this rotten situation, okay, you really, really screwed it up, and there's no way you can reverse it. What was the best thing you did? It was a bit of a, what do you mean, the best thing I did? I screwed up, I just told you. So, yeah, but in this screwed up situation, what was actually the best thing you did? And he was thinking, what a weird question, What do you want to do? I said, try and think about it. Just try and give it. I know it's a difficult question. And he said, well, actually, that I stayed calm. I mean, we had some really heavy discussions, and I let my temper walk off, but then I came back and stayed calm. Okay. I said, okay. So what would the other part say was the best thing you did? And he was just laughing. I said, what do you mean, the best thing? He would kill me, I'm sure he's calling my boss right away and say, you never send that man again, or I will terminate any contracts we have with your company. I said, yeah, but give it a try. Just give it a try. What would he say was the best thing you did? And he was thinking for a long time and said, I think it would be that I said, hey, shouldn't we make another meeting and start all over again? I said, okay. How did you manage to do that? I mean, you screwed up. You completely screwed up. So how did you manage to ask him for another meeting? I said, well, yeah, but we had to take care of it somehow. I had to do something. I couldn't just let it be open like this. I said, okay. So what would you do differently or more of next time you either have the meeting with him, or where you have a similar meeting where you screw up? Maybe you screw up again. Who knows? So what would you do then, based on what you know now about from this situation? And then we have a very constructive talking about what we could go into details. What did he do well? So there's always a best you did in whatever situation. And being able to see what would the other ones, this was a horrible situation, but what would they say was the best I did? Is a very difficult question. But if they think about it, it's so rich in what the outcome of it. And the rest of it, what can I learn from this situation and how can I use it for the future? So it's something that I love when people come and say, oh, it's horrible. Oh, I'm in a deep hole. I can't get out. It's impossible. I've just made a horrible mistake, or I don't know, I am to blame, and how can I ever get on with it? Then say stop. And people actually afterwards say, oh, it wasn't that bad. Yes, it was bad. It was a mistake. It was whatever it was. But okay, I did actually somehow get through it. I don't know. We've gone over time. Michael, do you want to say anything else?
Just thank you all.
And thank you for listening.
Go on to the next workshop. Don't be late there, and have a great time.